All right, hey, we're going to run through chapter 19 here. And this is going to be the response to that urbanization that we looked at in chapter 18. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The American cities are really going to start to grow. You're going to see the development of electric lights, power grids. You're going to see communication centers start to set up with telephones coming out to people. Skyscrapers are going to be start to be developed using iron or using steel instead of iron, so buildings should be able to be constructed much higher. And then the development of transportation. Picture here in the left just kind of gives you an idea. These houses, smaller houses, 2 or 3 story houses are what we could have done with traditional building materials before steel. After steel and the development of that, we are able to build skyscrapers and hold tons of people. Okay, so the challenges that are going to face cities during this time frame are, number one is just going to be the amount of immigrants that are moving into the cities for these factory jobs. You're going to have numbers of people relocating from countrysides to the city. You're also going to have an influx of European immigrants, typically from Southern Europe, from Eastern Europe, that are coming this time, and they're going to find jobs in these industrialized cities, and these cities aren't going to have enough housing for them, or quality housing for them. So you're going to see the development of tenements, which are basically just like super cheap apartments in which there's not adequate airflow, there's not adequate lighting, there's not adequate sewage, and they're going to turn into places where disease is going to be easily spread. A movement to help this it's going to be started by Jane Addams in America. She's going to be influenced by some of what happens in England during this time, where we call these things settlement houses, where you have middle class to upper middle class, college educated women that don't want to take on the roles of society, where they get married right away. They might settle in these poorer neighborhoods, rent a large house, and create some type of what's known as a settlement house, in which they offer services to their community, where they might offer ready-made meals, they might offer laundry services, they might offer English language classes in the evening for the immigrant population that's moving in. They might offer skills like secretarial skill classes to help people advance in this industrialized society. So I think the book does a pretty decent job of talking about the settlement house movement. You're also going to see migration of African Americans to the north during this time. You're going to see this what's going to be referred to as the Great Migration, and the start of the Great Migration that's going to begin. African Americans are going to move to industrialized cities like Detroit, New York, Philadelphia, looking for better economic opportunities. You kind of have a push-pull situation where the South is, obviously life in the South for African Americans is pretty rough, and so they're going to be pushed out. And while conditions aren't a ton better in the North, they are better. We have this old immigrant, new immigrant paradigm that's going to present itself. Old immigrant is typically Northern and Western Europeans that are going to practice the Protestant religion. By this time in America, they're going to be thought of as being having traditional American ideas. These are going to be your typical, your white settlers from Germany, England, France, Sweden, some of the Scandinavian countries, right? And they're going to be replaced in this time frame by these new immigrants that come over from Europe, again, from Southern Europe, from Eastern Europe. They're typically going to be either Catholic or Jewish. They're going to have a little bit of a brown to their complexion. They're going to be poor. They're coming to America looking for economic opportunity. They're going to have strange foods, strange customs, strange languages, and they're not going to be received well in America. And that's just a pattern of American history, that when a new immigrant group starts coming into the United States, they're persecuted by the establishment. See some pictures there. Okay, so we're going to see also during this time the birth of political machines. Political machines are basically going to offer help to immigrants in exchange for votes. So Tammany Hall is probably the most famous of these political machines. And basically what they did, Boss Tweed, who's pictured over there in the upper hand right, he just ran the city. Like he was in control of New York City, um, through bribes and intimidation and whatever, he would get things done the way that he wanted them to get done. In exchange for the services that he would offer to the incoming immigrants into the city, he would get them jobs and food and healthcare and those types of things, in exchange for their votes. And he would make sure that the immigrants went out and voted the way that he wanted them to, and he would get people political jobs. And he was kind of the kingmaker of the day, let's say. And so like it's there, it's good and bad because it offers a service to these incoming immigrants that wasn't there before, but it also leads to widespread corruption. Entertainment during this time frame, I think we talked a little bit about this when we talked about industrialization. People move into these cities, large cities, are going to have more entertainment options than they had, especially in rural areas. You look like at New York City, Coney Island is probably the most famous of the amusement parks. And even if you're working 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, you have that extra day off. You might take your kids to the amusement park. You might go to like vaudeville shows, variety shows. Baseball starts to become popular in the major cities. So professional sports becomes to be seen as a thing. Professional boxing is very popular during this time, especially because you see a lot of these immigrant groups that are coming on being represented by professional athletes. And so it's a way to kind of hold on to your immigrant background, or some of your ideas from back home, while also embracing America. Okay, entertainment. The rich are going to want to separate themselves from the poor, and so you're going to see the birth of like high class American entertainment, like Carnegie Hall, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, art galleries, operas, American musicals. Are going to come in fashion during this time for the wealthy or the upper class. As transportation becomes more widespread and streetcars and trains coming in and out of cities, the middle class and the upper middle class and the rich begin to move out of the hearts of the cities, and they start to form smaller, what we'll consider bedroom communities outside of major cities. And this is the start of your suburb movement, where the rich are trying to move away from the poor. And railroads and trolleys allow you to live further and further away from your factory that you work. Women are expected to run the homes, and kids are going to be in school. Middle class education is going to create middle class is going to create a need for education. Stay-at-home mothers need a place to put their kids where they're going to be more academically pushed. You're also going to see the introduction of land grant colleges across the Midwest and the West. And these schools are going to focus on things like agriculture and industry and whatnot. A lot of your famous like Big Ten schools. I have my Michigan State thing on today, right? Don't really have a connection to Michigan State whatsoever, but they're one of the land grant schools. Michigan's a land grant school. Indiana, Iowa State, Kansas State are also land grant schools. I believe the University of Kansas is, but it might not be. These are colleges that are basically the land is granted by the United States government, and they're formed to try to better the lives of the people that live there. Some different ideas that are going to pop up during this time. One is going to be conspicuous consumption. Basically, the more money you have, the more you want to show it off. So like spending money just for the sake of spending money or throwing elaborate parties or whatever is going to come in vogue for a lot of America's well-to-do. You want to show off that you have your money. You don't need to be, you don't want to be private about it anymore. This idea of social Darwinism is going to come about, where the teachings of Charles Darwin are going to be manipulated, in which Herbert Spencer is going to argue that the rich are rich because of their own abilities, and that they should take advantage of the poor because the poor are poor for their faults, the faults of their own. And the rich shouldn't feel bad about that any more than like a lion should feel bad about eating a zebra. And so this is going to lead to a lot of problems. It's going to lead to poor working conditions. You're going to start to see the manipulation of science to try to prove points. And you're also going to see during this time, you're going to see some city projects that are going to try to beautify cities, creating public spaces for people to relax and enjoy, like Central Park in New York, or just city parks throughout the industrialized Midwest and the Northeast. And so those are going to be there. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of an additional, some additional background on what you read in chapter 19. Good luck with that quiz. And 18, 19, I think we have 20, and then we'll have our little unit test coming up. So reach out to me if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.